Hannibal was an unbelievable TV show that deserved another season. I watched all 3 seasons of it in 10 days back early on in COVID when I noticed that it was on Netflix. I'd been putting it off for no particular reason. I just hadn't got around to watching it. I hadn't seen the Hannibal Lecter films, like none of them, like Red Dragon, Hannibal, Silence of the Lambs. I hadn't seen any of them when I watched this, so kind of like made it a little bit easier. I just, like most things, I hadn't gotten around to them. I have watched them all since, of course. But I did take a break between the show and the films just to digest how I truly felt about the show. Like, the series was excellent. Like, coming from someone who didn't really know anything before watching it, other than the fact, of course, that Hannibal Lecter was a cannibal and played by Mads Mikkelsen. Like, if you've watched the films or maybe read some of the books, you maybe have a different perspective on the TV show. But like, this was one of, if not the most visually striking shows I've ever watched. Shouldn't you begin to believe that everything is prepared by Hannibal after the first couple of episodes are human body parts cooked up in a beautiful manner? You can't tell me that knowing that they're human body parts, you still don't want to eat them. Like, the way that he cooks that dinner, like, you want to have it in front of you, you want to taste it. Like, it is exquisite, like, seriously. Like, they looked amazing. Each and every meal was memorable. But speaking of memorable, even though all the bodies that were found in the first season are memorable, I've seen every episode of Bones, and like, I know it can be difficult to think of unique ways to like stage a body before it's found, but all of them were amazing in Hannibal. Like, some of them were absolutely outstanding, like a beehive in a victim's head, bodies arranged as a piece of art, mushrooms growing on human remains in a vegetable garden. Like, you got everything. The cinematographers deserve praise on their own for how they managed to capture each and every part of the episodes to create something that was so visually striking yet aesthetically pleasing. That, like, the murder scenes with the blood spurts, the cooking scenes, the panning to wide shots, the arrangement of mutilated bodies, all inspired shock and awe in equal measure. The show has a cast that remains largely the same for the 3 seasons, so it's kind of hard to talk about them all, but the most important ones were Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy. Like, in a show that I'm now aware of required a strong chemistry between the roles of Hannibal Lecter and Will Graham, I was a little bit concerned about how I'm going to feel about their film counterparts. Like, it was fine in the film, like Anthony Hopkins did a great job, Edward Norton was good, but Mikkelsen and Dancy were outstanding. Like, the epitome, like, unbelievable. I began waiting for Will to realise what Hannibal was up to and to arrest him, but like, as time went on, the characters paired up and brought out the best in one another. In parentheses here, it's actually the worst in one another, but you know what I mean. They demonstrated how best to act when your character is someone with mental health issues, to the extreme point that you begin to question if they're even acting. That as the show lives and dies by the relationship between the pair, I don't think it could have been cast any better. I had a sense of poise and unease simultaneously with Hannibal, while also being certain and unsure of Will at the same time. Those may read as contradictions if you've watched the show. I just hope you understand what I mean, because it is so difficult to articulate it in an acceptable manner. As I have mentioned, there have been Hannibal Lecter films, 5 of them, before this TV show, and I was reminded at the very beginning of each episode that a book exists. I didn't know about that. From what I've learned, a few of the plot lines in the TV show are actually original thoughts from creator Brian Fuller, but his adaptation from the novels, when he did so, was done splendidly and exceptionally well. We did see that with the series being cancelled at the end of the 3rd season, the last episode did have some rushed elements. The rest of the series did play out in a remarkable fashion. It wasn't too fast, but not too slow either. It was just a slow burn of like beautiful psychological thriller. It was a great guideline for other shows wondering how to tell their story and keep their audience engaged and on the edge of their seats at the same time. There's not a lot I could say about this show when it comes to like issues, other than perhaps how it dealt with some of the characters and the lack of a 4th season, but that kind of doesn't fall into their remit in the first place. There was a chance for the audience to feel as though maybe female characters weren't treated as well as they should have been. some of them started off so strongly in the first season and just began to fall away as it goes on. That's where we ended up getting the series Clarice, starring Rebecca Breeds, which only lasted one season on, oh god, I want to say NBC. Was it NBC or was it CBS? I don't remember, but it only lasted a season anyway, and they weren't able to adapt some of those characters just due to rights issues between the pair. They were in episodes, some of the female characters, but there was a progression regarding story and life for perhaps 3 characters of the show, including 2 of the leads. This was okay for what the show focused on between Lecter and Graham, but some of the other characters didn't really move through life as much as you would have wanted or expected them to. Overall, I did think Hannibal was a great TV show, and in many ways was a great character study of the man Hannibal Lecter himself. It enabled us as an audience to appreciate the genre of horror and even some gore to an extent, in a way that has perhaps been missing since the late 80s and early 90s, when films such as Silence of the Lambs, Scream, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street and even Friday the 13th were, you know, staples for annual releases. It gave us a psychological thrill and caused us to become more introspective than we perhaps would have expected when watching a show similar to this. Considering everything that has been on TV since 2015 when the show actually ended, I struggle to think of a show similar, and I feel that NBC did drop the ball on not giving the show either one more full season or even just a mini-series just to wrap it up. And on top of that, then I think even Netflix made a bigger mistake not trying to revive it, such as they did with Lucifer and Designated Survivor. Lucifer obviously for, I believe, 3 seasons. Designated Survivor was only for 1. But if the option was there, I am shocked that Netflix didn't, you know, take advantage of it. But what did you think? Like, was TV show overrated? If you'd seen the films first, does it have an effect? Maybe I was just lucky that I didn't know as much about the characters going into it as maybe some people do. But I genuinely thought the show was outstanding, and that actually reminds me I probably should go rewatch it.